on Market Table. I'm visiting Medina's historic public square. Join me as I browse the farmers market, meet the local farmers and vendors, and create a simple, family-friendly meal using fresh, organic produce. This morning we're talking all things syrup. Join me as I create a sweet and savory dish made up of one of my favorite flavor combos, waffles and chicken. To market we go. My name is Kristin Gambaccini, and this is Market Table. I'm here with Al from Stumpwater Farms, and my first question has got to be the name. I love the name, but I need to know how that name came about.
My son actually came up with it. What he thought is the sap comes out of the roots, and could be a stump, and that's why it's called stump water. Unfortunately, if we find out later as we learn more and more, the actually sap when it runs comes out of the top of the tree.
Oh, no.
When it gets cold, it actually goes to the top of the tree, and when it warms up, it releases and comes back down.
Well, that's okay, because it's still a cool name. And it still makes sense. It still makes sense. I like it. So tell me a little bit about your maple syrups. What makes your maple syrup different than me going to the grocery store and buying a bottle of maple syrup?
First of all, everybody starts with the same thing. The sap, whether it's made here, made in Vermont, Canada, whatever, we all start with the same sap. It's how you handle it. Some people don't collect it every day as it runs. We collect every day that runs. We're mostly on tubing, and so it keeps it cleaner and what have you. And then we boil it that day, and that's the biggest thing. Some of the stuff you get in the big box stores, what they're doing is they're taking it real high. They're going through reverse osmosis. They take it real high on. They go up to like 35-40%. We do use reverse osmosis also, but we only go to 8 or 9%. And if you run it through too fast through the evaporator, it don't get the caramelization. It don't get the taste, and that. So that's one thing different. Costs us more money for fuel. We use wood, but it costs a lot more wood to do it that way. But it gets a better product.
Yes, absolutely. And you say we. Is this a family-run business?
Yes, it is. Actually, my son, Jared, he owns half the company, and I own the other half. But everybody works in the family, so even little granddaughters.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's great. So when do you start tapping the trees? Like, what's your time frame for that? When is your big season?
It depends on the year as far as the weather. Normally we tap towards the end of January. We can tap a little earlier because of being on tubing. Then it goes sometimes into April. This year was a very short year. It was into February before we started, and then we didn't get close to April. It got too warm too quick. Okay, yeah, those are things you don't think about. You know, when you think about having an early spring or the weather getting nice, for us who don't deal with maple syrup and tapping trees, that's something we don't think about. When the buds start to break, you're done, because the chemical makeup of it changes and the sap isn't any good.
Okay.
So
all right.
That's why we're done.
Little science lesson for us. I like it. So I'm going to be making a waffle and chicken salad. It's a little bit different, but it's a combination of flavors. I feel like it's one of those dishes where it's the strangest things, but put together they taste good. So tell me what you would suggest. Which maple syrup do you suggest I use for this dish?
Probably you want to use a darker maple syrup. Like this is an amber and this is a dark. And you can see there's a little bit of light difference, okay? And the darker on cooking, it comes through a little bit better. Okay, you get more of a maple taste. Normally we also have one we call sweet and spicy. I think it would be good, but right now we're sold out of it and we haven't had a chance to make it. We're in the process of building we're doubling our size of our store, and we're making a new sugar house. So right now we're kind of running every which way.
Yeah, so you have a storefront as well? Okay, and where's that?
It's just south of Wellington in Huntington Township. We actually have a Sullivan mailing address, but we're actually in Huntington Township.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. I didn't realize there was a storefront as well. Well, I am looking forward to having some of this syrup. I might just put some on a spoon, as a matter of fact. That's how much I'm looking forward to it. But I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me.
And I can give you a sample. I actually have samples of some.
We love samples. We do. Thank you so much. So here we are on this beautiful day. It's a little windy, but it's Christmas in July. So there's so many fun things going on the square right now. And I'm going to be making a dish. It's a flavor combo we've heard a lot of lately. We've seen it in our chips. We've seen it at the restaurant. Waffles and chicken. And it's just, to me, it's the strangest combination. But I'm going to take it up a notch and I'm going to make it into a salad. So we're making a waffle chicken salad. And what I love most about this dish is, number one, you can make it as hard or as easy as you want. I'm going to be making some homemade waffles. I'm going to be using prepared, already kind of crispy chicken. I got to admit, these were frozen, but you can absolutely make your own fried chicken. And then the kicker of the whole dish is the dressing I'm going to be making. That is really what's going to make this dish. So a lot of people don't realize how simple it is to make your own waffles. You can absolutely buy the box with the little directions on the back. Most pancake mixes can actually be made into a waffle mix. But today we're going to make some from scratch, just because I want to show you how simple it is. And I mean, you figure I'm making it for my family of 10. So I'm making a lot of waffles. So I have 2 cups of all-purpose flour here. And I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of sugar, just white sugar. And then we are going to add a little bit of salt, maybe like a teaspoon of salt. You don't need a lot, just enough to kind of add that in there. We need a tablespoon of baking powder. We need 1 1/3 cup of milk. And I have my milk already measured out here, so I'm just going to pour it in. We have 1/3 cup of vegetable oil here. We're going to add 2 eggs, and these are actually eggs from my chickens, so these are as fresh as we can get. And then the last 2 ingredients are kind of like my secret ingredients. They're typically not in your homemade waffle recipes, but I have learned through the years that these really add a lot of flavor. So I'm going to put about a tablespoon of vanilla extract, and then I'm going to put 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. And the lemon juice not only adds moisture to your waffles, but it gives it a little bit of a tart taste, but not so much that you taste the lemon. If you wanted a lemon waffle, you could absolutely put more lemon juice in there, and it would really be a very, very lemony flavor. But this is just enough to give it a tart taste, but not so much that my kids would be able to recognize that I put lemon in it, if that makes any sense. So we've got all of our ingredients in this bowl, and it's really just a matter of mixing it up. You saw I put everything in there at one time. I didn't separate, I just poured it all in. The great thing about making a homemade waffle mix is that it doesn't have to be smooth. It can be chunky. I'm just going to scrape the bowl a little bit. And I will show you what I mean. It's runny enough that I'll be able to pour it into my waffle maker, but a little chunky, and that's okay. It's going to be perfect in the waffle machine. So I'm going to put these in my waffle machine. I'm going to get that started, and then we'll move on to our dressing. So I have my waffles here. Really, you want them to be a little bit extra crispy in this recipe. An option, if your waffle machine or your waffle maker doesn't really get a crisp to your waffles, you can always put them in the oven for a few minutes. Make sure that they've got some butter on them. Put them back in the oven for maybe 10, 15 minutes at 350. Keep an eye on them and let them crisp up that way. It's just an easy solution to make sure that your waffles are the right consistency for this recipe. Soggy waffles aren't really that great in a salad. I have my fried chicken here. Again, I told you earlier, this was frozen, prepackaged chicken that I just heated up in my oven. You could absolutely make your own fried chicken. But now we're going to make the dressing. And this is kind of the star of the show, of the whole salad. So we're going to start, as with any dressing, with vegetable oil, vinegar, salt and pepper, kind of all the basics that you expect. So we will need 1/3 cup of vegetable oil, 2 tablespoons of Dijon mustard, and it really needs to be Dijon because it gives it that bite and it's just the right flavor, the right texture, the right taste for this dish. Typically, I would say mustard is mustard when I make a dish, but in this case, you definitely would want to try to make sure you go the Dijon route. We're going to need 3 tablespoons of maple syrup, and this is our Stumpwater maple syrup. So it's fresh, it's dark, it's amazing, it tastes fantastic. It's very sticky. And then we need a tablespoon of vinegar, just a little bit of vinegar. And this is just a white vinegar, nothing fancy. A little bit of salt and pepper, just to kind of add to that flavor. And then I'm gonna add some honey. I know we've already got that maple syrup in there, but we did add the Dijon mustard. So this is just gonna give it a little bit sweeter of a taste. And I probably have, I'll put maybe a teaspoon of honey in here. Not much, just a little. And I still have lots of that honey left over from our segment using the Elk Farms honey. So we've got our mason jar here. I've got the lid on, I've got it screwed on tight because I'm just gonna use this to mix it up. You're putting a lot of wet ingredients with some chunky ingredients, so it's gonna take a minute to really mix it up. It's nothing that's gonna happen fast. You could put this in a bowl and just whisk it with a fork. It doesn't have to be anything quite this fancy, but not that a mason jar is fancy. You know what I mean. I'm just gonna keep on mixing it. So we've got a good consistency, and I think we're just about there. So I have my romaine lettuce here. Obviously I have some pieces that are cut up and a little bit smaller. If you're making a presentation for this dish, you can absolutely leave the larger pieces around the outside of your platter. We're gonna add our chicken, which is again, just some fried chicken, pieces and cut up into whatever size you want. You can make them a little bit longer, a little bit smaller, depending on who it is you're feeding. I tend to cut my food up smaller because I know I'm feeding little ones. And then we're gonna add our waffles. Again, if you wanted to leave them longer, you could. I'm just gonna do smaller pieces, just what I'm used to. And if you decided to put these back in the oven, which I did not due to the fact that I'm on the square, these would have a very buttery, yummy taste to them because you would add the butter before you put them back in the oven. So just keep that in mind if that's a step you wanted to do. The final step is going to be to add the dressing, which we've mixed up here. I can't wait for this. It almost has a honey mustard look to it, but with the maple syrup, I can really just drizzling this on, I can really smell that maple syrup. It smells delicious. And I'm gonna try a bite because I can't let it just sit here. So good. I already know it's gonna be good, guys. All right, here we go. That's good. Just the right amount of sweet, a little bit of sour, but with the chicken and the waffles, this is really one of those dishes that would please any crowd. I mean, my kids would eat it just because I put waffles on it. So, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy this dish. I want you to try to make it. If you make it, show me your pictures. I'd love to see them. And I'll see you at the fair. Head to KristinGambacciniBlog.com for this recipe and others seen on Market Table.